When I hand you an AI, I'm actually handing you not just a tool, I'm actually handing you sort of an army of workers.
There's no reason to think small when you have something so powerful.
If someone comes to you today and say, I can add 10 more people to your team without you having to spend any money at all, or $20 a month, would you do it? You say, of course, give it to me. You have to make the move even before you're ready. And AI is actually...
Welcome to the very first episode of Founders Plus AI. Real talk for founders building big with AI. I'm Michelle Akhidenor, founder, NYC-based podcast producer, and your voice of, wait, can we break that down? And I'm here with Boon Chew, AI builder, founder of Centaur Lab AI, and the guy who's here to help us cut through the noise and understand what actually works. Today, we're kicking things off with a really big, important question. What should you build? And why should it be AI? So Boon, so excited to have you here. Let's dive straight in. Boon, the first question I have for you is, why should we even build with AI? Is it actually worth the hype, or is it just a tech trend that's got really great PR?
Good question, Michelle. So I think there are two components to the question. Why should we even build with AI? The first is the spatial question, which is why should we build with AI? The second is the temporal question, which is why should we build it now, right? Because there's two components to that. But before we get to that, let's come up with something that we all agree on. I think we all want optionalities in life. We want freedom. And in order to get that, the one medium that can allow us to do that is money, right? So we do all of that stuff for money, but money is not what we're after. We're after the optionality, the freedom. And so if you look at that, the way we go after money right now is we go to work, we produce something that people want, right? These are products and services, basically. And if you look at AI, some people see AI as a tool. So it's as if today I come to you and say, Michelle, I'm going to give you a screwdriver, do something with it. So you go figure it out, you become a carpenter, and then you create something and you make money, and then you get your freedom. But when I hand you an AI, I'm actually handing you not just a tool, I'm actually handing you sort of an army of workers. So the way you think about building with AI is now different, because before you're just building that one thing and you need to be good at it. You need to learn it. There's a lot of knowledge that goes into leveraging that one tool to be good at it before you can sort of produce value out of that. But with AI, you can create value pretty much immediately, and the scale of that is huge because you get an army now. Now, if I give you a huge army of workers right now, would you just sit them on a bench and do nothing? Or would you have them do something so you can get that optionality and freedom I was talking about? The freedom. So of course you want to do something with it. You're not going to let them sit there. So to answer your question, yes, if you have AI right now, you have access to that, don't just use it as a tool. Use it as a way to build a nation or to build a community, to build a big business. You have to think big because the tool is there and you know what you're after in life, which is freedom. And so AI is the right tool to achieve that.
I love the way you put it, Boon, where it's like you get more than one person, or you're not just building up one thing anymore. You're not creating one thing from money, for example. You actually have a team of people.
Yeah.
I think, myself, I'm a founder. I have no idea how to do anything to do with technical side of anything. So for me, I guess my question there is, but how do I program these AI agents to kind of build for me or on my behalf? And I think, what would you say to founders right now that are just kind of like, I know I can hear you, AI does seem useful, but also it seems really daunting?
Yeah. I think a lot of this sort of barriers come from pre-AI. Because you always think that technology is, there's a barrier that you have to learn it, but AI actually changes a lot of that. I think once you know the learning curve is not steep, you're going to jump into it. So really for me, it's really getting people to go over that small hump. It's not even a big barrier. So because AI, especially the generative AI side of things, it is responding to your question. So all you have to do is just be able to, know a language and be able to type or be able to talk, speak to your AI, and AI can do it for you. Now, the other advantage of AI is that it's getting easier and easier by the day as well. So even if you sit there and do nothing, the access you have to the tool is getting easier to use by the day, because even a non-tech co-founder can use a tool to do all kinds of things, including coding as well. So I think a large part of the barrier is really just taking that half an hour or a few hours that day to get used to it. But the actual barrier is actually not there. It's mostly psychological, coming from the pre-AI world.
How do we break down those barriers?
First of all, we obviously are habitual animals, right? We do things that we are, we are sort of familiar with, and we do it day by day. So to break out of that and really go use AI is a new habit in a way. So people always tell me which is that one thing I should focus on. So just start with something simple like ChatGPT or any other LLMs out there, and just be familiar with it, because right away you get to see the kind of power you get from that, right? So, and then of course, like I said, there's a lot of other tools out there. Some tools will still need a little bit of learning to use, but the way I see it is that every tool that you know is adding wings to your back. So it's so much, the ROI is so big and so immediate when you learn it. So I think it's really not so much about the barrier to learn how to use AI, but more so to install the habit to use it and to learn about it. And the installation of that habit to really sort of be up to speed with the new tools and learn it and use it and integrate it into your workflow is what people need to sort of consciously get themselves into. I mean, using AI is way less difficult than you doing the podcast right now, right? So the fact that you can do podcast, the fact that you can speak, it's like you can do AI, use AI for sure. So the barrier is definitely not so much there, other than that we have to consciously install habit of learning it and then using it every day.
My big question is why? I think at the moment, I love to use ChatGPT. I'm obsessed with it. It's like so easy. It actually has, I feel, changed my life in a way. But why should we, what's the opportunity cost of just not adopting AI? And then I think specifically for founders, for us not building with AI, what is that opportunity cost and why should we?
I'll give you an extreme example. Because right now we're here talking, we don't really have a lot of barrier in terms of, even though English is my second language, I'm still relatively good at it. But if I put someone, let's just say, they just came to the US and they're looking for a job, or they are doing something on a job and they are still learning English. This person has no access to AI at all. But another person, same shoe, but they have access to AI. Right away, the amount of work that the other person can do is way more and more accurate, right? So they can still do it in their native language, but they can translate it. They can, word it the right way. So we can see that the opportunity to that second person is already different right away. So the opportunity cost is huge because you're now using AI to remove the skill barrier, right? So if you look at internet is removing the geographical barrier. But I think AI is removing the skill barrier. What does that mean? That means even young people, kids, can do things that only adults can do, before, right? So that's why if you can look at all the AI tools now, young kids can, create music and, write stories and stuff like that. That's not to say that they can write as good as an adult, but at least that barrier to entry is much lower now. Okay, they can access that. They can sort of feel what it's like to be a songwriter. So the opportunity cost is huge because if you don't use it, you basically narrow your exposure to what it is that you can do. And I think that's something that is very hard to measure sometimes.
I love how you talk about this for kind of the everyday, everyday habitual or everyday person and also just in our everyday habits. But if we talk about founders specifically, those of us who are out there building our companies, just in our day-to-day, where is the incentive there for us to start building in with AI and I guess even delve into building an AI product, which is what this show is all about? Why do you think that's something that we should be thinking about right now when we are building other things and, we've got existing businesses or maybe we've done businesses in the past or maybe we've just got an idea. But why does it have to be with AI?
Yeah, because AI is almost like adding more people to your workforce. So if someone comes to you today and say, I can add 10 more people to your team without you having to spend any money at all, or $20 a month, would you do it? You say, of course, give it to me. So the fact that you have access to those manpower, quote unquote manpower, so to speak, is enormous. Because instead of having a big team, now you can have a 2-person team. the reason why we have big team, even in a lot of big companies, is because it makes it easier for us to hire people. It's not because it's ideal. Every person carries a line of communication, an extra line of communication. So that creates a leakage. When you have less people that can still do the things that 10 people can do, you actually have less leakage because you don't have as many communication lines going, right? So even using AI just for the sort of the simple fact of cost saving, that's already huge right there. Not to mention that the system that you build to automate the things that you do, to add intelligence to the things that you're doing, is obviously growing your thing, but whatever it is that you create that makes it useful for your business, you can then release it to let other business use it as well. So that in a way is like you're kind of productizing your operations in a way. You're kind of creating an extra income stream in a way, right, for your business. So why not do that? Why not codify your operations? Why not codify, right, your thing into something that AI can do? And then if you want to turn that into a business opportunity, you can do that as well. But if nothing else, just make it more efficient and, bring your sort of brain towards something that is harder to do for AI, like creativity type of thing. So it does open up a ton of availability and opportunity for you when you use AI.
You got me at saving money in my business. I mean, I'm not going to lie, that's always a big one. So really interesting. I want to shift gears a little bit to talk about literally building an AI startup. I think so many of us out there, those of us here sitting in New York City, it's just the number one thing in tech right now, building with AI, building an AI startup, not just using AI to kind of like cost save in our businesses and things like that. If we're thinking, maybe that's something we want to do and we were kind of just not really sure, but we think maybe the time is now, how do we even go about coming up with the idea, an idea for an AI startup? Like, where should we even be starting here?
Yeah, there are many angles to this question. One angle would be that if there's already something that you're doing or a pain point that you're experiencing in your day to day, then creating AI for yourself right away, you are the first beneficiary of that. Right, you benefit from that right away, even before turning into a business. So the more you use that, and the more it becomes mature, and you start realizing that other people in the same shoe as you may benefit from that, then you can turn that. So that would be one angle to do that, right? Is to really solve your own pain point first before you release it for other people to use. So that would be one way to source your idea. But the other way would be to look at, hey, aside from work, there could be other passions that you have, but you never really get a chance to do it because you didn't think of a way to monetize that. And AI can potentially help with that. Now, keep in mind, AI is not just there for you to use. It is there to give you ideas on how to use it. Remember, this is just a part because it's intelligence. And so I think the word artificial intelligence is a little bit misleading there because it is, in a way, to me, more of a digital species, if you will. Right? It's almost like a digital human in a way. And it will become more and more so over time. Meaning that it can, at some point gain the ability to reason, right? So it will. Right now, it's already surpassing, IQ tests for, in all of bar exams and professional exams like that. So you are getting a very powerful ally for a very small amount of cost. So now the question is, how do you leverage that, right? So AI itself can also bring ideas to you. And so you have to rely on that. Again, that's integrating into your workflow. That's what I'm saying in the first question is integrating AI into workflows. That any questions that you have before and we're so used to that, to come up with questions and just sit there and not really know where to get the answers. But AI is right there waiting to answer you. Now, it doesn't mean the answer they come up with is correct, but at least it gives you some guidance, gives you some ideas, right? And so I think looking into AI for, again, generating some ideas, looking into the things that you're doing to generate ideas. For me, because I run a venture studio, ideas come from all walks of life. Anybody that I talk to, I would right away think about what sort of things that I can do right now with AI or without AI that can solve that pain point. So ideas are all over the place. It's a matter of coming with the right criteria to decide which idea to pursue,
I love how you talk about the pain point, so solving someone's pain point. I think whenever we think about building any kind of business, whether it is with AI or not, I think starting there is so valuable because I think at the end of the day, and I also love backtracking, I also love where you say it's a pain point that you've had. So something that you've personally seen or experienced. Because I think even for myself personally, when I think about what ideas I could have, or, what new businesses I could start, for me, I think, yes, absolutely. What pain points have I experienced? But then also I feel like there's a passion piece. What thing am I actually interested in? Like enough to want to start a company, And I think sometimes there is just so much hype around AI right now. We can get overly excited about the potential of what this could do. But sometimes I think, once that excitement starts to wear off as you go deeper into the venture or deeper into assessing the idea, I think this is where, at least for myself, you can run into problems because business building is really difficult, even if you are alleviated by, the help of AI. So what's your take on that? What's your take on, ensuring that your idea is embedded in something you're genuinely interested in or passionate about?
The way I would do it is I'm going to just go do it. Let's just say I don't know how to embed it. I just go do it. Because the way I see it is that if you look at AI, there's IQ, there's EQ, there's what I call AQ, or action quotient. IQ right now, AI is, right up there. It's getting better. EQ, I think so. It gives me a lot of advice that I don't know, and that would have resulted in less arguing, between me and my wife, for example. So it definitely has higher EQ than me in many situations. But AQ is where we still have a little bit of leg up because, we don't have humanoid kind of doing things right now. So I think really going into doing it and without even having answer to even like the question you mentioned is the number one thing. But in terms of what you're saying about how do you go about integrating into your thing, I think a lot of it comes down to you basically observing how it benefits you when it integrates into your thing. I exercise daily, for example, right? And fair amount of time. But if I don't have AI integrated well enough into it, I'm not going to have enough time to either exercise or to work. If I exercise too much, I'm not going to work enough. If I work too much, I'm not going to exercise enough. So it kind of forces me to integrate AI into it, right? So I have to integrate AI so that when I walk, I can continue to work. So I think some of these things you will have to, it gives you the incentive to so that you can have the best of both worlds, if you will. Yeah, and then don't forget even the question that you just asked. You can ask AI and see what it comes back. You get back from that. So that's the beauty right now, right? The beauty is that right now, any questions that we have, we don't have to just get stuck with it. AI is there to at least give us some ideas. And if we're not happy with it, we go to the next LLM for that. Because the beauty, if you think about the whole LLM, is that it compresses the entire internet into that one thing, right? And you get sort of all the wisdom captured in that one thing, in that one model right there. So it's a lot of data, a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, all compressed down into that one thing that is at your disposal. Our whole life has been trained to be giving the right answers, including building business. But now you have someone there to sort of encourage you to ask questions so that you can get some answers for you to validate them.
So valid, and I think I love the idea of like using ChatGPT to find your startup ideas. Like, yes, please. Okay, really interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about how to choose the idea that you want to pursue. So let's just say for the founders sitting out there listening, you're sitting there going, okay, cool. I already know I kind of want to build with AI. I know it's like the thing of right now. I'm hearing what Boon's saying about integrating it into my everyday life. So it feels very natural that the next step would be to build an AI product in my company, for example. How should we be going about choosing the right idea in terms of maybe you've come up with a suite of ideas, as you said, ask AI or think about problem solving, what's a problem that you could solve? How do we actually settle on what the right idea is? And is it at this stage we should be thinking about investor idea or fit or, is that too early? Like, how do we know what idea to actually pursue?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
There's actually a deep sort of aspect to that. Because a lot of people, they jump at an idea they come across and they just build that. And I see that a lot. but a lot of the ideas are too small. And they either didn't really look closely and say it's too small, or they build it and then realize it's too small and they cannot go further than that. Because how much time and money can you burn working on something that will never go big? So the way I vet, and I'm just using 2 simple metrics because I like to keep things simple, because if I make it too complicated, I'm not going to remember how to do it. The way I think about it is, can I work on this for a long period of time? 5 years, 10 years, whatever time horizon. That's number one. The second thing is, can this thing be worth a lot? Meaning, can it go far? So meaning like Amazon, I build books, I sell books, can I sell everything under the sky at some point? So if the idea can scale to a very large idea, even though you're starting small, and it's something that you are passionate about working on for a long period of time, then I think it's an idea worth pursuing. Because you're going to have a lot of ideas. You have to have some metrics to surface the ones that is worth your attention. And so I think this would be a good metric. The other thing too, of course, sometimes when I say that you're willing to work on it for a long time, doesn't mean you want to work on it for a long time. You also want your idea to succeed quick as well. Because especially if it is your first time being a founder, you want that idea to be successful, because that gives you a lot of credibility, right? To work on your second thing. But in general, I like to kind of like someone give me sort of the what do you call that thing that genie the bottle, the genie bottle.
Oh yeah, the genie bottle. Yeah.
Someone give you money, make 3 wishes, make 3 wishes like the lamb.
Yeah.
And I always say, the one wish I would make is give me 10 more wishes to make, right? So it's the same thing when I think of an idea. I like the idea to be like that, where that idea can turn into more ideas, That's why we create Central Lab with the venture studio. I'm not working on one startup now. I'm working on a meta startup that can create many startups. So that's sort of the thinking there. Yeah. And that thing I can do until I die, because it's something that will, always be exciting for me. Yeah.
I love how you talk about like the longevity.
Yeah.
I think anyone that's built before understands just how long, how much passion's required in business. And then secondly, like how much dedication over an extended period of time, not just 1 year or even 2 is like quite short. So I love that you talk about, for context, I have been in my podcast business for 7 years and it feels like an eternity. But at the same time, I really resonate with that, because I think if you are not passionate about what you're doing, and if you are not thinking about, when you're assessing your idea, could I do this for 10 years? Yeah. If that's a no, then I think it's such a great way to just vet out, okay, cool, take that off the list, next one.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. So a question I've got for you is, when should we jump into the AI game? You talked a lot about adopt it into your everyday routine. That's all great. But as a founder, like, should we jump now? What if we build in 2 years? Like, is that still okay? Like, when should we be diving into building with AI?
Yeah, timing is such an essential thing when it comes to building a business. If you're doing something that is time insensitive, like maybe your job currently, then you can do it anytime you want. That's why you see sometimes people dropping out of the school, because the school is always there. The school is not going anywhere. So if internet is here and you're not going out and building an internet thing when it's just booming and you're going to school, why? Because school is always there. So it makes sense to go do that thing. And if you fail, you can come back to the school and continue with it. And that's totally fine. So I think with the AI thing, it's the same thing here. To your first question about why should we even build with AI, and I added a word now, because the word now makes the why 10 times bigger. It's like anytime when you're riding on a wave, the results that you get, it's way, way bigger than if you do it 2 years or 3 years later. The other thing too is that because you are whatever comes out for the first time tends to get a lot more attention, and people tend to be a lot more forgiving as well, because it's the first time they saw it. There's no bar. But once you come up with that first thing, the second person is not going to get as much news. You're the second person. And the bar might be a little higher by that point as well. So I think there's a lot of advantage in jumping into it right away. And this one era where we have such a huge sort of change in terms of technology, it's not going to repeat itself over time. You're going to see incremental, of course, everything is going to move in sort of exponential speed. But sort of the convergence of all the things that happen at the same time for this to go big and become, super useful, is right now. And so waiting for the opportunity cost is very high. And so I always tell people that there's no other time than now to jump into it. Of course, if they hear this message 2 years later, it would still be now. That would be that time. You know, you can almost call it the power of now. You really have to go in there and just do it now and not say, I wish I did it yesterday. I wish I'm going to do it next year kind of thing. No, if you hear this message and just jump into, even if you're not ready, jump into it, right? So this is one thing that people have to learn is that you have to make the move even before you're ready. And AI is actually makes it easier for people to do that. Yeah.
I love what I've learned from you, Boon, which is like the golden age of AI is now. We've got it in a lot of our podcast copy. I think, that is just so valuable because I remember you telling me at another time that if in 5 years' time you decide to build, it's just going to be a very different ball game. So building with AI literally today or, as you said, power of now, even if it is in 2 years, is so essential because it's just that golden age of AI. I think back way when, oh goodness, 8 years ago when I started in podcasting, it was the golden age, right? It was before every person had a podcast. And I think where you're able to go and just as you said, how forgiving people are in those early days, they're just almost so astonished that you're doing this new thing is huge. And I want to circle a little bit back on and gain some clarity on when you say building big.
Yeah.
Like I love that idea. And I know you mentioned it was to do with like, is it going to sell for a lot or not really, but is it going to have a big financial output or impact? How do we know if an idea that we've come up with is going to be big and why should we be building big?
Yeah. Because the energy to build big or small, they're roughly the same. So it doesn't really make sense to be, like working so much on your idea to build something small. And so I think that the other thing too is that with AI, the thing about it is that because like I mentioned before, you get an army of workers, right? Or intelligent digital species at your disposal. So why would you think small? Unless there's a reason to do so. So if you come up with a reason to think small, then go for it. But if there's no reason it has to be a strategic reason to do that. And there's not a reason to do that, then don't think small. Because AI is cutting into every single industries and is applicable globally. Like you can change many people's lives. That's the whole point of you creating something, is that you can benefit a lot of people, right? So I think the big doesn't have to mean like number of people using it. Big just means that the idea itself can scale to a very large size in terms of what you can do with it. And there's nothing wrong with building hobby projects, but if you want to turn it into something that can benefit a lot of people in a big way, because why? Because if you do it and you're able to achieve that, then you get a lot more of the money from that to do your next big thing. You don't really want to stop at your first idea. You want to keep on doing it. The way you do that is to build something big so that you can get you can get that sort of vote, if you will, from a society to say, hey, you did the right thing for me. I want to see more from you. And you take that and you build the next thing, right? So with AI, there's really no reason to think small when you have something so powerful. Yeah.
I love that. There's no reason to think small when you have something so powerful, so great. Boon, I still have so much more I want to learn and I'm so excited for this series. But, as we come to the second part of today's episode, which is all about stretch testing everything you've taught us and everything that I'm learning and that we're learning alongside you about how to build with AI, when the right time is the time now, how to generate ideas. So I'm so excited to be able to share an AI idea, an AI startup idea that I have of my very own. I've been mulling over this idea for quite a while now, many months, and this will be the first time I'm actually sharing it. So I've prepared a bit of a pitch for you, Boon.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it to you, and I would love your real, honest, very raw feedback on this idea that I have.
Okay.
I can already think of ways to improve it now that I'm learning so much, but I'm going to speak to camera. So my AI startup idea is called Peers AI. Hello all, I'm Michelle, and I'm here to talk about the number one reason why most podcasters quit. It's not burnout. It's not running out of content or ideas. It's lack of growth. You spend hours producing, editing, recording, promoting, but when the numbers don't move, it's soul crushing. And that's why 90% of podcasters quit after episode 3. Now, here's the bigger issue. 80% of podcasts are produced in English, but only 17% of the world speaks it. That means millions of amazing shows are locked in a single language and missing millions of potential listeners. That's why I'm building Peers AI, an AI translation and voice cloning tool that lets podcasters translate their episodes into any language, all in their own voice. Not a robotic overdub or a generic narrator, your voice, your tone, your energy, your story, just speaking Spanish, French, or Mandarin. Because in podcasting, the thing is, your voice is your brand. And in a saturated market, your voice is what builds trust and connection. At Peers AI, we combine cutting-edge voice cloning with language-accurate podcast translation built specifically for audio and video podcasts. So podcasters can 1, translate full episodes instantly, 2, keep their tone and emotional resonance, and 3, distribute globally across Apple, Spotify, YouTube, with multilingual clips, subtitles, and episode descriptions ready to go. This isn't just another AI tool for content. It's the only AI voice translation tool built by podcasters for podcasters. The thing is, Boon, I've lived this pain. I've spent over 7 years in the podcast industry building global podcasts for billion-dollar brands like Shopify, Indeed.com, and Alibaba. I bootstrapped my very own podcast production house, the Peers Project. And no matter how big the client, the question is always the same. How do I get more listeners? At Peers AI, we are the answer. Built by someone who's been in the booth, behind the mic, and inside the strategy rooms. We're building a podcaster-first platform that puts voice, growth, and global reach all at the center. So if you want to solve the biggest problem in podcasting today, a market that's exploding and is on track to hit over $130 billion by 2030, and if you want to grow your audience by the click of a button, come sit with us, build with us, translate with us. This is more than AI. It's a movement to break language barriers and give every podcaster a global stage without ever losing their voice. Boon.
Great.
Feedback. Thank you.
So,
it's my first pitch.
You ready for the
I'm
feedback?
ready.
Okay.
Raw, hard. I'm ready.
So it's a good idea, of course, because you identify that this is something you need. From an investor standpoint, I can see a few things here that could be an issue. One is that if you don't make a lot of money from it, meaning that you create something like this, but nobody really uses it because they don't care about the market. Let's just say, I'm not saying that's the case. Then, of course, you're not going to go far, right? But let's just say you pick up steam. Everyone wants something like that. But just before you get to a point where you get a lot of people using it, someone that has a lot of audience, some software or whatever, they start rolling this feature out, or even Google. They start rolling this feature out because they have such a massive reach compared to you. Because you have to tell the whole world about your software. They don't. And or even podcasting software right now, incorporate this feature into them. You get crushed right away. So that's the one thing that we talk about, which is moat, which is like barrier, right? It's like what sort of barrier? There's not a whole lot of barrier right now to implement translation and voice cloning with what's out there. You can use that and build that. That's not to say you shouldn't build that, but you want to build more things around that to make it even more harder to replicate, or even like make it so that nobody wants to touch it because it's just not in their space. So I would do a few more things to kind of spice it up. Again, you know this space better than me, so I'm just throwing things from sort of an inexperienced person's perspective. One is, I think, is that for someone to create a podcast, aside from the language part, which I totally agree, is the idea generation part. Like, what kind of idea should I talk about? Right? What sort of content should I create? So if you can also roll that part in, to make it so that once you do the onboarding, meaning you ask some questions, you dig ideas out of you understanding. So if you add that part into it, meaning before you get to the translation and voice cloning part, but you actually know them deep down, their background, all of that, and then you come up with ideas, and you see which one they actually gravitate towards, and then you start building that. That lowered the barrier to entry for them for even further, because now they know, hey, I didn't even know I was sitting on a gold mine with all the things that is unique to me that I can produce with Michelle's software, right? So the idea generation part, you generate the idea, you use human reinforcement, like, which is the human. They vet it out. Hey, I like this idea. Don't like this idea, kind of thing. And then you can do the whole voice cloning and translation part of it. But after that, at the back end of that, once you produce the podcast episode, create something that has never been seen yet in a podcast. I don't know if there's something like this is already out there, but make it so that there is action items. For example, today's talk. A lot of people are going to be listening to this episode and walk away doing the same thing again next day. Nothing happens to them. Same old day, right? But what if right now I change the format and I turn this into something where we have action items at the end of the podcast episode? So you do that with your software. You have action items that whether AI, whatever can generate and summarize, and then you tie rewards to that. So then you now encourage people to engage with the podcast episode as well. That's not something that your podcast creator has to worry about. It's all built into that software, right? As long as they approve those action items. Like after you listen to this thing, go build a startup. Let's just say the action item today is go build a startup. And if you build a startup and get 5 customers, I'll give you this price, whatever that is. But you built that into that offering. Now you have end-to-end, that entire thing there where you have, low barrier to entry for the host to get into the podcast game. But you also have audience that are highly engaging because they want to win the prize. They don't want to just listen and not do a thing. A percentage of them would want to do something and win something, and then get some sort of social recognition. So that whole Pierce AI that you built that has the idea generation, action items, plus gamification combined into it, I think would make this very, very interesting. Yeah.
Firstly, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was the first time, and you are an expert at this, and you assess ideas every day of your life. So I so appreciate the feedback. I think I'm aware of, us not getting too excited and delving too deep because it's only idea stage in episode 1.
Yeah.
But I've just got a clarification question. The initial thing that I think when you give me that feedback is, how cool is that I could build a platform that could be end-to-end for a podcaster?
Yeah.
The other side of me goes, I already know 5 or 6 platforms like that I already personally use. I don't want to be another one of those.
Okay.
And I think something that I've always tried to stick with, and again, this is just, I don't assess ideas every day. You are the expert.
Yeah.
But I guess for me personally, like the way I've built my first business, which is the Peers Project podcast production, all we do is produce podcasts like this.
Okay.
That's it. Right? We don't do like any other type of content. We don't do TV shows, or we literally just produce just one product.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is, I wonder what your feedback would be, as my final question, what your feedback would be is if we started with the translation element and then built on that in future.
100%. Build something that you can use right away.
Yeah.
But get ready to build the other things I mentioned, right? Now, let me go back to what I said before. Yes, you want barrier, but it doesn't mean if it is already out there that you don't build it. Why? Because I think if someone else has a canvas and they paint on it and it's a beautiful painting, it doesn't mean that you just go and buy their painting. You can still paint on your own canvas. Why? Because the canvas, as you paint, you're going to be putting different things on it. So you will have your own flavor as you go. So when we look at what's out there right now, we don't just avoid it because someone has already done it. We still build that same thing because that thing that we have access to it directly, and we can influence the direction, and we can put whatever we want on it. It's our canvas. So I still highly encourage someone who is really passionate about what it is that they're doing. In your case, like the podcast translation, as you do it, new ideas will come up. You'll be like, hey, what if I try make an AI thing so that people can stop their podcast anytime they want and ask questions, and the AI can answer that. That'll be super useful. Like, me giving answers to your questions just now, I'm sure some things may not be as either after the podcast episode, I'm like, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that, or maybe I didn't make it clear enough because I was using some technical terms. But people can just pause the podcast and be like, Boon, you were saying that just now. Can you dig deeper into it? And then my AI voice can answer them that question. You can build that into it once you have the translation and the voice calling done. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Boon, you're a legend. So that is a wrap for episode 1. Boon, all of your feedback, all of your energy and all of your expertise has come in so handy for myself, and I'm sure for a lot of our founders out there listening. So, this episode was all about generating that idea, coming up with an idea, and also why should we even build with AI right now? And I think we've really hit the nail on the head with a lot of those questions. So in the next episode, we'll be diving into how to find product to market fit before you write a line of code. So can't wait to dive into that one. But before then, make sure to hit subscribe so you do not miss what's next. Then follow Centura Lab AI on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and join our newsletter so you can stay in the loop. If you have an AI idea of your own, pitch it to us there. We'll see you next time, builders.
This episode is brought to you by Ego, short for your extended ego. Imagine an AI version of you nurturing relationships behind the scenes 24/7. Ego takes care of all virtual networking behind the scenes, all in your voice. Sometimes we simply don't have enough time. We forget to follow up, we forget details about that one person. But with Ego, you never have to miss out on a good connection. Ego, your network supercharged.